Yeah, I should win just because you had the Timberwolves in the 8th seed.
Vasilevsky's been playing really well, and the Lightning have a great offense.
Yeah, it was a tremendous shot, and I've come to expect it from LeBron. I would say I wish the best for the Red Sox, but as a Yankees fan, that's really hard for me to do.
The biggest addition to me is Jalen Brunson.
Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and that's all I have to say. He's still a top 5 quarterback in this league, and there's nothing really anyone can do about it.
Why'd you have to name him? Like, seriously? Like, thanks, man.
Who would have thought 5 years ago that the Clippers and Nets would be facing in the finals?
How is Joe Burrow going to get the ball to them if his butt is already on the ground?
Crazy. And for the fans at home,
Hello, I'm Cy Mendenhall, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. Draft day is already here. It's coming up later this week. You know, you could call some of us in the scouting department, not in the tortured poets department, but that's what we got. The man that's starting to catch on to the references, Austin.
I am. I like them, but there's so many teams that need some of the same positions that it is weird. We'll see who drafts the best. It's always interesting to see how teams address their needs, whether they go through trading up or whatever. But who do you want to start with?
I went alphabetical, just by name or by city almost. So I have the Arizona Cardinals. Are you cool going with them first, or?
Sure, we can go alphabetical. That's fine. The Cardinals, I have wide receiver. I still remember when they had Larry Fitzgerald and DeAndre Hopkins. Those were great years for Kyler and the team, and they need a premier wide receiver, and they're probably going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr., or if he gets taken earlier than Rome Odunze, they need a wide receiver.
Yes, I agree. Wide receiver as well. I thought Marquise Brown would turn out well for them, but he's a free agent. They got rid of Hopkins a few years ago, so really depleted position. So wide receiver. Then I went with Falcons. I went O-line. You got to protect Kirk Cousins. I wouldn't be opposed to going defense, but I just felt offensive line it would just help elevate that offense that has been lacking the past few years.
Yeah, I ended up going linebacker. I feel like that's a big need for them. They struggled linebacker-wise last year. I'm not opposed to going offensive line, obviously, because every team can't get enough offensive line talent. But I feel like linebacker is also a big need they need to address.
Now we go to the Baltimore Ravens.
This was very tough for me. I ended up going D-line. I know they lost to Jadeveon Clowney. And while their D-line is obviously amazing, and I feel like every positional group for them is amazing, I didn't want to go wide receiver because I feel like while they are good in a lot of other positions, I think if you can still bolster that D-line even more in the first couple rounds, I think that's probably their best move. I do have a lot of wide receiver on this list, though.
I have a lot of wide receiver, and this is where I went with the Ravens. Defensive line, I could totally go with because they do have Justin Matabuke, and he's a great player, premier guy. I wouldn't mind adding depth here, but this is kind of like my mantra. I really think they need to add to the wide receiver room. I do like Zay Flowers, but they lost Odell Beckham Jr., and I just give Lamar Jackson one weapon. And I think it's be a cheap weapon. I know they're a big running team, and that should be their identity because they're amazing at it. I just want them to add some threat in the passing game because that will help their run game. So I think they can do it in this year's draft because it's a great wide receiver draft, and it gives them some cheap money as they're paying Lamar Jackson, paying Derrick Henry. I really think that just will add a facet to their offense. I'm not saying they need to become a pass-heavy offense. I just think they need to have the option of passing to keep defenses honest from just selling out for the run game. And that's something I think they've been lacking for a while. But we'll go Buffalo's Bills too. But yeah, Ravens, it's just like a tiny thing. Buffalo Bills, they need to get a wide receiver. Their number one wide receiver is Khalil Shakir. And no offense to Khalil Shakir, he's not, you can't go into that because that hurts your second wide receivers too. it is amazing how they have fallen because I love Gabe Davis. I love Stephon Diggs. They're all gone. Like, you have to replace your wide receiver.
I agree. Here I went wide receiver. I thought this was one of the easier picks on the board, honestly. After losing Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, you have to address the position. I like Dalton Kincaid. I like Dawson Knox as tight ends. Their running back situation with James Cook last year was good. Their goal line is good. Their defense is fine. It's been good the past couple of years. They have a defensive head coach, but they need to address wide receiver extremely bad.
Yeah. And I think you can say the same thing for Carolina. I go 3 in a row wide receiver picks. I know Carolina signed. Did they sign someone? Or they signed a wide receiver, didn't they? Or
they traded for Deontay Johnson, I believe.
oh yes, that's what they did. And you have Adam Thielen still, but to help this offense and to help Bryce Young, which is your future, I think they need to go wide receiver.
I don't go wide receiver here. I feel like it's O-line. He was the most sacked quarterback in the league, he being Bryce Young. And I feel like Bryce Young's biggest problem regarding wide receivers was more that he didn't have time to get to the ball. So I feel like O-line is the most important thing here. You don't want your QB being hit, especially at his age, his time in development. He needs time in the pocket to actually address NFL caliber defenses without having to be always worried about getting hit every second.
Yeah, Carolina is a team where they could go multiple directions, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just went wide receiver, but O-line is a good pick. That's my pick for the Chicago Bears. They could go defense here, but we're talking about a new QB. I think you go O-line here because I really do love their wide receiver room.
I went a little bit bland and just went QB. We already know that they're probably going to take QB, but it's technically not on the team and it's draft needs. So
that's
taking Caleb Williams, I feel like, is the best choice. And I feel like it's also the most important choice.
Yeah. So, I keep forgetting. But, yeah, they do need to take a QB. That's their biggest need. So, yeah. Assuming they take a QB, then I'd go O-line. But, yeah, that's a good point. We'll go Bengals.
I went offensive line here. Your QB keeps getting hurt, and they keep getting sacked. I almost went wide receiver because of the T. Higgins debacle, whatever's happening there. They haven't traded him yet, right?
No, they haven't. I think he requested a trade, but a lot of players do that, and they may figure something out. He is on the franchise tag.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there, but I think O-line. Joe Burrow can't keep getting hurt.
Yeah, I agree, O-line, but that's not my pick because you kind of got to know your audience. The Bengals do not care about O-linemen. They just do not. So instead of being ignored, I went defensive line because their defensive line is starting to get old. You have Trey Hendrickson, but I think they need to put in some youth and help that defensive line. But offensive line, of course, would be great for the Bengals, but they just don't listen to us.
Okay.
And Browns,
I went wide receiver. I like Amari Cooper, but this is a great wide receiver draft. If they could add someone else, some player that could contribute immediately, a Jalen Polk, a Jeremy McMillan, a Troy Franklin, one of those wide receivers that's in a tier 2 or tier 3, but they are definitely really good, and I think NFL caliber immediately will help their offense. Their defense is already great. I wouldn't touch it.
So I do understand the wide receiver pick. I went corner here. I know they got some good corner, but I would like if they could just add one more. I think that would
their corners are really good, though.
Yeah.
I can see them adding anywhere on defense, but the thing is they don't need to. I feel like wide receivers are a more pressing need.
But they're believing in the potential of Judy. You got Amari Cooper. So this team was tough because I would say QB, but they're kind of
you can't.
You're
spending way too much money, and it's guaranteed money. You're tied in.
Like I would say QB because everything else is great, but that is a piece that you cannot replace because of what you've done financially and just all that situation. Now we get to the Dallas Cowboys. You could really say everything on here. I wouldn't be opposed. I went offensive line and literally any offensive lineman except right guard. Or I don't even know Tyler Smith, I think, might play guard, but right tackle, you do have Terrence Steele, but You're missing a center. You're missing a left tackle. Could also get a left guard. That to me is their biggest need, especially with Dak.
I thought it was pretty obvious because of losing Tyron Smith and Tyler Biotish. It was always going to be O-line.
Yeah, but they have so many holes that they've kind of dug themselves into this. So I wouldn't be opposed with whatever they're doing. I'm kind of team trade back. Trade back, draft a lineman with that pick, and also draft on other needs because they need to solve the corner issue. Also, linebacker wouldn't hurt. Defensive lineman wouldn't hurt. So, yeah, the Cowboys have put themselves into this. Then we go with the Denver Broncos.
Maybe. Well, I still think that Jared Stidham's a quality backup and maybe low-end starter. I don't think he is the best answer. Maybe they see how it goes, but I think they draft somebody and go into next year with a rookie QB.
Yeah, QB is my need here. Yeah, I should remember that because I automatically, I think I've just gone in my head, yeah, they're going to draft a QB. I think Penix is a huge guy here for Sean Payton. But yeah, they're going to go QB because they've been trying to solve this issue ever since. And it's taken them some dark roads. But yeah, that is who I have. Now we go with the Detroit Lions.
The Lions secondary, this is pretty easy for me as well. Their secondary was their biggest pitfall last year in the playoffs, and I really think it's their only real need, either cornerback or safety. I didn't really go that specific.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought about going corner. I went defense. Defensive line. If they can add another player to Aiden Hutchinson, I think that would really elevate that defense. But I think you go defense, offense, they're pretty stacked. So yeah, that's my opinion. Then we go to your team, the Green Bay Packers.
The Packers, it's O-line. We've obviously had everything that's happened with David Bakhtiari and all that stuff has been not the greatest, but O-line, let's help out Jordan Love here and get him some assistance. We already addressed running back. We already addressed wide receiver. Our defense is fine, and we will address it in the draft. I just think the most important need is O-line.
Yeah, I agree. O-line. I know David Bakhtiari. I think y'all also lost someone else, or did someone else leave?
I think so, yeah. I don't know if it was one of the starters, but I do know that we lost another guy.
Yeah, and then we go Houston Texans. This is a team, they're pretty much locked up. They solved a lot of their issues. I went linebacker.
I went O-line. I like their O-line, but I feel like you could get even better.
Yes, that's a great point. We are a pro offensive line podcast. But yeah, that I wouldn't be opposed to that. Now we go Indianapolis Colts. I went wide receiver here to help Anthony Richardson. I know you have Michael Pittman, but I think they could also add someone else.
Yeah, the Colts is another tough team. I agree with wide receiver here. A lot of these teams consecutively will be wide receiver for me just because I know how good this draft is. And that changes your needs. If there's no good at a certain position, you're not really going to value that all that much because you know that it's not going to help you further on. But this wide receiver class is so good. And I'll go straight into Jacksonville. It's wide receiver again. They do pick up Gabe Davis, but they lose Ridley. They need more help for Trevor Lawrence. It's such a great draft for wide receiver. It's wide receiver.
Yeah, that's my pick as well. That was a great transition. That was going to be my transition. Yeah, wide receiver for Jaguars. Losing Calvin Ridley hurts just because he was a good wide receiver. I don't know if he fit into what they wanted, but now you have Gabe Davis. I think if you had another wide receiver, that'd be great. Then we'll go with Chiefs. You kind of hinted at consecutively. I didn't go wide receiver for the Chiefs. I went left tackle.
Even after what happened with Rashee Rice?
Yeah, here's the thing with the Chiefs that I think they can get by with Travis Kelce still being there. They have Marquise Brown. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but left tackle or tackle, they gotta solve that issue. Like this year was their worst tackles. So I really think they got to go tackle in here to replace Donovan Smith. I don't know if they've even brought back Donovan Smith.
I don't know yet, but I went wide receiver here. After the Rashee Rice news, and then also I don't necessarily believe Marquise Brown's good, but he's not a big guy. He's a deep threat, and you need a bigger wide receiver. And because of the Rashee Rice, I don't know what's going to happen there. And I even with that, I still think they need to address wide receiver anyway. So I went wide receiver.
Okay, that's fair. I think they can get by with Kelsey. Is it a risk? Yes. I would go more on offensive line to help Kelsey, but I wouldn't be opposed to wide receiver here as well.
Yeah, I think it's for the best. What do you have for the Raiders?
Raiders, I have corner.
Okay. I just put defense besides Max Crosby.
Yeah. And they have Christian Wilkins, but yeah, defense is kind of the main issue here.
Yeah, I forgot that they got Wilkins, but their D line still needs work even with Wilkins and Crosby because I don't like the rest of the D line. So they have the two guys isn't the only guys you're going to be rushing. So I honestly think maybe I'll make a note defense besides Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins. So, but their defense needs a lot of help.
Chargers, you could go a lot of ways here. I went wide receiver. Like, you don't have Mike Williams. You don't have Keenan Allen. The number one wide receiver, Joshua Palmer.
Or Quentin Johnston, yeah.
Quentin Johnston, yeah, TCU.
Yeah, he had a bad year, but I think he could be better. I also have wide receiver here. It just seems like something that's going to happen.
Yeah, they just need to help. Then Rams, I was like, man, what could I do for the Rams? And then I forgot. Aaron Donald retired, defensive line.
I went O-line. Their O-line was not the best last year. They still haven't really addressed the Andrew Whitworth retirement. So I feel like that needs to be fixed. But D-line is definitely a great pick as well.
Yeah, offensive line is, never a bad pick. Then we go Dolphins. I went defensive line as well because they lost Christian Wilkins.
I went D-line as well.
Even then, they still need help. Vikings, I went QB.
I agree. That's relatively easy. I also went QB for Patriots.
Same. Yep. Saints, I went wide receiver.
We're agreeing a lot. It was wide receiver for me.
Yeah.
I like A.T. Perry, a young guy, did not play all that much last year. I think he's a 6th-round pick, and I think he's going to be good. What were you going to say?
And they also have the Ohio State wide receiver.
Chris Olave.
Yeah, but
they also have Rashid Shaheed, which is interesting. But the injury concerns that I have with some of those guys, and you need a real second guy. Like if they could get a higher draft pick guy to pair with Chris Olave, I think it's really big for them.
Yeah, Giants. I also have wide receiver here as well. Who's their number one wide receiver right now? Wait, is it? Oh my gosh, is it still that Lions player? Is he still on that contract?
No, it's not Kenny Galladay.
Where is Kenny Galladay? Is he on the team?
No, I don't know if he's in the league anymore because of how bad that tenure ended up going. But I think
he's still on the team.
Like I think Darius Slayton is one of those top guys. I'm trying to remember.
I think he's still on the team.
I don't think he's on the team. Unless
he's a free agent.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking of it was supposed to be Kenny Galladay, but yeah, I think you're right. It's Darius Slayton.
Let me make sure that was the guy who got the most yards last year. Last year, their top yards getter by receiving was Darius Slayton. Yep. And second was Darren Waller, who's a tight end. So
and
it's
Darren Waller
Slayton.
might retire. So if Austin and I are struggling naming the wide receiver for the Giants, I think that shows that there is a problem on the wide receiver. Not to pat ourselves on the back.
Is I didn't even go them. I went O-line. The O-line debacle that happened with Evan Neal last year. Besides Andrew Thomas, I'm not talking about anybody on their O-line.
Yeah, that's also fair. They need to give weapons and just protect Daniel Jones or another quarterback. They also signed Drew Lock. So really, offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and then for the Jets, I went wide receiver. They obviously have Garrett Wilson, but I feel like if you added a second guy for Aaron Rodgers, this is a year to go full-blown for offense.
What about Mike Williams? Like they have Mike Williams. Also, isn't there another wide receiver?
From the Chargers?
Yeah. I feel like
he's
there's
still one of the
another
most injury-prone wide receivers
Yeah,
in the league. That's not going to change my pick. I forgot that he was there, but that's not going to change my pick
Yeah,
because
that's
of how
fine.
injury-prone he is.
I went linebacker for the Jets.
Don't they still have whatever is it? What is his name? What is his name?
Oh, Quan Alexander.
That wasn't even the guy I was thinking of. They have Quan Alexander. They have Quincy Williams.
Oh, yeah. This one was tough for me.
Quincy Williams was All-Pro first team last year.
Oh, okay. Dang. Maybe they don't need. But I don't feel like corner. They might need corner. I feel they go defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
Because you got Sauce. Maybe you go second corner. Yeah. But yeah, I feel they're kind of good on wide receiver. I want to remember who's their other.
Even after the injuries with Mike Williams and all that stuff's happened.
I feel like there's another wide receiver. Oh, Alan Lazard. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And I think he gets better with Rodgers healthy.
That could be true. I wouldn't necessarily want to bank on it, though.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, that's not a bad pick. Next, we go Philadelphia Eagles.
O-line. You lost the greatest center, maybe of all time. I feel like you have to address that.
Forgot about that. I also went corner, though. Like, their secondary.
Corner's good, but I feel like losing Jason Kelce will be felt immediately, and it must be addressed.
And it's going to hurt their quarterback sneak. Like, that's what made their quarterback sneak so deadly. Not the tush push did help, but it was mainly because you had Jason Kelce at center.
Yeah.
That's why so many teams couldn't do it that well. But yeah, center's a good pick. Steelers, I went offensive line.
Yeah, that's my pick as well.
Niners, I went corner.
I went linebacker because of the injury to Dre Greenlaw.
That's a good pick.
So this is a Super Bowl bust year, and you know Dre Greenlaw's going to be out or coming back from Achilles tendon injury. You need to address it, I feel like.
Seahawks, I went offensive line as well. I think they lost a guard, and that would just be helpful for Geno Smith.
I mean, think about it, Kevin. Jason Peters started games for them last year. It was always going to be O-line for me.
Yeah.
Jason Peters at 42, basically, was starting games. Played in the playoffs. Or they didn't make the playoffs, did they? No, they didn't. They didn't. No, they didn't. But he was playing in games that could get them to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they were playing in massive, massive games, and Jason Peters was starting at tackle for them. Yeah, give me O-line.
Tampa Bay, what'd you go with?
O-line.
Okay.
I still feel like that's their biggest area of need. They're running the ball is still not the best, and I feel like that's because of their run push.
I went defensive line for Bucks. I believe they lost Shaquille Barrett.
Okay.
So I think pass rush would help them. Titans, I just changed it to O-line. I'm not really sure. I think they got Peter Skoronski. I think they need help if they want to help their offense.
O-line's a good one, and one that I forgot. Their O-line was bad last year, but I went safety. They lost Kevin Byard, and they still haven't really made up for it.
Yeah. My other pick was going to be defensive line. They do have Jeffrey Simmons, but I think they could help. But yeah, offensive line to me. And then Commanders, I went quarterback.
Easy quarterback.
Yeah. They've done a really good job of filling their other needs with players and kind of filling those holes. But yeah, quarterback's their main issue right now.
I agree.
But yeah, I'll toss this over to you as that's all I got.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Which teams did we get right? Which teams did we get wrong? Who do you feel like for your favorite team? Who should they add this year? And please catch us in our next video.